Welcome to this episode of the Fig Files. I am your host and fig pig, Stephen Biggs. This is all about how to grow figs and harvest figs in a cold climate. Steve here, and today we're talking about figs that wake up too early. It's the end of February right now, and this is the time of year when I start to hear from people whose fig plants are waking up way sooner than they'd wanted them to. And what can happen is sometimes something makes that tree think that it's time to grow. The temperature might be too warm, our days are getting longer, so there's more light, and sometimes if you're giving it more water than it needs to, that combination of moisture, longer days, more heat, that'll get things growing. Most often I find that heat is really the critical thing that wakes them up, so if you can keep your conditions really cool, chances are you can keep your figs dormant as long as you want. I keep mine in my garage and I have it insulated. I keep it just above freezing through the winter, and because it's insulated, even when it starts to get warmer outside, it stays nice and cool in there, and even though I've got a couple windows, those fig plants stay dormant until I wake them up by giving them more heat. And you know, sometimes we will try a space thinking it's the perfect space to keep our fig trees dormant all winter, and it doesn't work. I've had a neighbor who used a crawl space under the house, an unheated crawl space. We thought it would be perfect for keeping the figs dormant, but it was just a bit on the warm side. And sometimes, well, each house is different. I have a friend with an old farmhouse that has an earth floor, no insulation in the basement. That's perfect for keeping a fig tree dormant all winter long. But in modern houses that are centrally heated with good ducting throughout the house, you might not have that kind of space. So sometimes we have to play around. Now, the key thing to remember is that once that fig tree wakes up at this time of year, February, March, you probably won't get it to go dormant again. And so what you will need to do is just keep it growing and give it the best conditions that you can to get good compact growth. The challenge is that light conditions indoors tend to be dim. And when the light is dim, we get lanky growth. That's not what we want. We want nice compact growth. And so give that fig tree the best light that you have. If you have a south-facing window, that's a start. It's not perfect. I've talked with people before who do a combo of a south-facing window plus some supplemental light, maybe from a grow light, a shop light. Better still, what if you had a 3-season sunroom? At this time of year, hopefully it won't freeze in that sunroom anymore, and you've got bright conditions. That would be perfect. Cooler conditions, bright light to get some nice compact growth on the fig. But big thing is, remember, at this time of year, when it's growing, it's come out of dormancy, is that if it gets touched by frost, if it's in freezing conditions, that will burn back that new growth, and we don't want that. So we want compact growth from bright light, but we have to be careful because that new growth is tender and it is susceptible to frost and freezing. When you go to put that fig tree outdoors in the spring, as well as making sure that it doesn't get touched by frost or really cold temperatures, you want to also keep in mind that the bright light outdoors will always be brighter than what we have indoors. So even if you've had your fig tree in a bright south-facing window, and even if you've given it supplemental light, it still doesn't compare to out of doors. And so what can happen is when we move our figs that have leafed out early from the house to the outdoors, those leaves can scald. And so to prevent that from happening, to prevent those leaves from scalding, what you'll do is you'll put it somewhere shaded for at least a week before you, bit by bit, move it into brighter conditions. And even better if you have somewhere that is also sheltered, because sometimes in the spring we get strong cold winds that can also dry out or burn that new tender growth. I've also seen people do things like create a temporary greenhouse out of doors for figs that wake up early. And this could be as simple as a really rough structure made with some lumber and some clear plastic, enough to prevent things from freezing as we get towards that last frost date, but a little bit warmer in there. They're still getting bright conditions, so you get nice quality growth. And as you're doing all of this, start to think about what could be different next year to prevent your fig coming out of dormancy earlier than you want. Is there a heat duct you can shut off if you've stored it in the house? Or is there somewhere cooler that you can put it that will keep it dormant longer? And I've got a whole bunch of articles on the website, foodgardenlife.com, all about growing figs and all about different strategies to get those fig plants through the winter. So I hope this helps you figure out what to do with your fig tree that has come out of dormancy early. And this is one of those things you might just have to play around until you find the right spot in your garden or your setup where you can overwinter your fig trees and keep them dormant all winter long. But it's a common thing, so play around with your winter conditions. And the main thing at this time of year, now that your fig has woken up early, is to give it the brightest conditions possible. For more tips and ideas about how to grow and harvest figs in cold climates, head over to foodgardenlife.com. There's a whole library of articles and interviews with experts and a free ebook all about growing figs in cold climates. foodgardenlife.com.